In this video, we're going to talk about the new responsive layout genie in the UX component. So responsive layout is a term that is commonly used to describe a layout that changes automatically based on the screen size or screen orientation of the device that you're running on. So you can see here we have a component right now in the mobile simulator, and we're in landscape mode, so we have a list that is displaying 4 columns of data, and currently there is no header displayed on this panel card. But when we change over to vertical mode, to portrait mode, you can see that my list now has 2 columns of data and that the header is displayed. So let's go back now and take a look at how the responsive layout genie was used to do this. So we'll go back to design mode right now, and we can see here's our component. There's the panel card with the list, and then the header component over there, so which contains the text that displays header. The list itself has been designed with 2 different layouts, so you can see that this list has a vertical layout and a horizontal layout. So those are the names of the 2 layouts, and if we go to our list layout, we can see that the vertical layout has 2 columns, but that the horizontal layout has 4 columns. So now let's go over to properties, and we can see that there's a section in the UX properties called responsive design settings, and then let's click the button to open up the builder. So when we open up the builder, we can see a builder that displays different rules, different actions, and then different properties for different actions. So let me actually start from scratch here and recreate this set of rules. So I'm going to go here and delete these rules and then delete these actions. So now we're starting out with a blank slate, and the rules are basically JavaScript expressions that evaluate to either true or false, and the expressions can reference system fields like screen.width and screen.height and various other system fields. So you can see if I go here and add a rule and then insert field, I can see all of the little system fields here that I can reference. So screen.width, screen.height, screen.orientation, and then device.is mobile, device.is Safari, etc. So this the rule expression is any arbitrary JavaScript expression that you want, and then you can give the rule a name. So the name is arbitrary. It doesn't matter what you call the rule, but you can use the name in show hide expression. So it's a good idea to give it a meaningful name. So rather than just go and create my own rules right now, let me load a rule set, and you can see I have a predefined rule set here called landscape and portrait. So you can create your own rule sets and then just save them if you want, but right now, so we're just pulling in this very simple rule set that has one rule that tests if our device is in landscape, and we've given that rule a name called landscape, but it could have just as easily been called Bob or Fred. And then another rule here called called portrait, which tests if we're in portrait mode. So now let's go and add, for each rule we can define a series of actions. So the first action that we'd like to do is set the active layout in the list control. So we'll go there to list control, and we'd like to basically control list number 1. So there we go now. So we're setting the properties now of list number 1. So when list number 1 is in landscape mode, we'd like to go here and select the horizontal layout. But when list number 1 is in portrait mode, in this rule, then we would like to select the vertical mode. So at this point now, we've defined the rule that selects the active layout in the list control, but we haven't yet defined the rule that turns on and off the header. So let's pause now and pick this up in the next video. So we're continuing our video now on responsive design in the UX component, and we've defined a rule now that sets the active layout in the list control. So let's go now back over to working preview, and we can see now that as we change our orientation, the list changes, but the header is still visible in both situations. So let's go back now and add another rule to our builder. So we'll go here and select another rule. This time we'd like to modify the properties on a panel card, and the panel card we'd like to operate on is panel card number 1. So when we're in landscape mode, we'd like to basically hide the header, and when we're in portrait mode, we would like to show the header. So let's go back now and click OK, and now go over to working preview. So we can see that we're in portrait mode, the header is shown. Go to horizontal mode, and now the header has been displayed. So at this point we've displayed a very simple set of responsive rules, and in fact the changing from one list layout to another list layout could actually be done in the list itself, so we didn't really need to use responsive rules just to control the list. But it does serve to demonstrate the concept here. So let's go back to design mode right now and just take another look here at the builder. So you can see here that we have a tip that says to see generated JavaScript, just right click. So if I go to this first action and right click, you can see that what I see here is the JavaScript that's going to get generated to select the active list layout. And if I go here to this next tab, this is the JavaScript for all of the actions for the current rule. So this is all of the actions for the portrait rule. So this is selecting the list, and this is displaying the header. And then if I go to this final button over here, this is all of the actions for all of the rules. So there's the landscape rule being defined over there, and there's the portrait rule. So being able to actually see the JavaScript is interesting for advanced users who want to learn how some of the JavaScript was written. So in this case we've created a very simple set of layout rules, but let's go now to another example that this time displays some more complex rules. So in this example over here, you can see that we have a panel layout, and inside the panel layout we have two panel cards, and the panel cards inside this panel layout are set to flow from right to left. So let's go now to working preview, and we can also see that panel card 1 doesn't have an explicit size set on it, but panel card 2 has an explicit size of 60 pixels. So let's go now to working preview, and we can see now that we have our two headers that are displayed here. There's the one panel card, and over here is the second panel card. So now if we switch to, say, horizontal mode, we can see now that the layout was actually changed from top to bottom to left to right, and the headers were turned off. And also this container over here has become visible. So we have a little container over here which is displayed right now in horizontal mode, but when we go to vertical mode you can see that that container disappeared. So there's a lot more going on right now in this component than in the previous one that we demonstrated. So let's go back now to properties now and take a look at the responsive design settings for this component. So we can see here that again we have just two rules, but of course there could be as many rules as you wanted. You might, for example, have a rule for landscape on a phone, landscape on a small tablet, landscape on a big tablet, and then landscape on a desktop browser. So then for any given rule, you can specify whether that rule is turned on or turned off. So I have a rule here called JavaScript, but since the apply setting button has been turned off, we're actually not going to be applying that rule anymore. So you can turn on and off rules individually in the properties pane over here. So let's go take a look now at the first panel layout over here, and you can see that for this panel layout, when we're in landscape mode, we're setting the flow direct. So we're continuing with our video on responsive layout design, and what we're showing here is that when we're in landscape mode, we're going to go and set the flow direction of this panel layout to be left to right. But when we're in portrait mode, we're going to change the flow orientation from left to right to top to bottom. Then we can see here for this panel navigator, When we're in landscape mode, we're going to hide the header, and when we're in portrait mode, we're going to show the header. Then for panel card number 2, when we're in landscape mode, we're going to set the layout size to flex 1. But when we're in portrait mode, we're going to set the layout size to, instead of using an explicit size, like for example, say 160 pixels, we're going to say JavaScript : and then we're going to specify either some JavaScript code or the name of a JavaScript function that will be used to return the value. So in this particular case, we've said that when we're in portrait mode, we'd like to compute the width of panel card 2 based on this JavaScript function, and the JavaScript function gets called with 2 parameters, screen and device. So let's go take a look now at get panel width. So I'll just close that down temporarily and go to JavaScript. And so here's my function get panel width, takes 2 arguments, screen and device, and then it's going to return 160 pixels. So that's the value for that panel inside the panel layout when this particular layout rule is true. So going back to the builder here, so we've just seen how we can use either explicit values or JavaScript expressions, and we can change the layout size and also the dock position of this panel card, which is an immediate child of that panel layout over there. For panel card 1, you can see that we've got the header being shown and then hidden depending on the active rule there. And then for panel card 3, I don't believe we've actually turned on any rules at all. So in this case here, the rule set is more complex and allows you to create more complicated adjustments to your layout based on the active rule. But what we haven't discussed yet is how this this container over here is shown and hidden. So let's go back now to the builder and go to the container. So here's the container that contains those buttons, and if we go now to the container's show hide expression, we can see that the show hide expression is referencing a system field called dialog.activeLayoutRule. So there is dialog.activeLayoutRule, and we've said that when the active layout rule is landscape, then we're going to show this container. And the word landscape here doesn't really refer to the device orientation being landscape or portrait. The word landscape here is an explicit reference to the rule name. So this rule name here, landscape, is arbitrary. I can call this anything that I want, but given that I did call it landscape, I can reference the active rule in my show hide expressions, and so that was the technique that was used to show and hide that container. So while there are a whole bunch of built-in rules that allow you to do a whole series of different actions based on the active rule, there certainly may be situations where the available rules don't cover your particular needs. So in that case, the JavaScript option allows you to specify any arbitrary JavaScript that you would like to execute when that rule becomes active. So what we've shown here in this video is how you can build very, very complex rule sets so that a single UX component can be rendered in a completely different way depending on the device and orientation, and how a single component can look different on a phone, a small tablet, a large tablet, or a desktop browser. Thanks very much for watching.